welcome to AI Revolution Digest, where businesses get smarter. I'm Jesslyn, and I'm going to show you how AI drives real results. And because the future is awaiting, let's dive right in. How are emerging technologies reshaping the future of innovation? That is the question for today's episode, and now let's welcome our guest speaker for today, Sir Anglen. Sir, thank you for being here. Can you tell our listeners who are you and what is it that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jesse Anglen. I run a company called Rapid Innovation, and controversially, we focus on replacing human beings with digital labor. And so we are a digital labor development company, a little bit different than an automation company, where people come in and they use like pre-built tools to come in and automate different workflows. That is very useful work, and I'm glad there are people doing it. Where we come in is when there's something really, really complex that needs to be automated with very, very complex agentic systems, or even building entire agentic employees that are in your Slack and that work for you as if they are a human. And so, yeah, that's our focus at Rapid Innovation.
I just want to go back because you said something interesting for me is you build a business that's to replace essentially people, right? So what made you decide to do this? Because if you're an audience listening to this and they're like, who's Jesse? What went to Jesse's head and say, I want to replace human beings. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's actually it's a really, really simple logical conclusion that I came to. So about 3 years ago, I saw my very first agentic system.
Mhm.
Um, and I thought, wow, that's going to replace about three people on my team. And this was 3 years ago. This was like ChatGPT 2 or what, something along those lines. I mean, it was AI hadn't even learned, large language models hadn't even gotten very good yet, and it still replaced people. And as the models got better and better, I realized that the company that I had spent the last 6 years building, um, which was ultimately just a like a standard development company, right? A development agency. I realized that we were already out of business. It was just a matter of time because at some point in the future, and I didn't know if it was in the near future or the distant future, there would be no need for a company like mine.
Mhm.
Um, and so I thought, well, what do I do? I mean, do I write it out for as long as I can? Like what is the smart move if you know that you are in an industry that is going to disappear? It's not any different than the cab drivers or the husbandry people, right, that were taking care of horses back in the day before automobiles. Like once you see your first automobile and you find out that they can manufacture them and people are going to buy them, you have to say, well, do I actually want to, breed and sell, train taxi cab horses? Like maybe I don't. Like maybe this business is going to disappear. And so I had that moment and that realization where I thought, you know what, my job, my business, everything that I've spent the last, 8 years building is going to be gone one day for sure. If in my mind it wasn't a matter of if it would be gone, it was just a matter of when it would be gone. And so I just decided, you know what, if I can't beat them, join them. And we started working on automating our business, and playing around with that concept, augmenting the people that we had, reducing the labor overhead that we had.
Mhm.
And I just realized this is incredibly valuable work that somebody needs to do. And to me, all the same things will probably happen. I may one day work myself out of a job and out of a business because there'll be no need to automate anything once it's all automated. But that's going to take a lot longer than automating developers. And so for me, this gives me more runway. I get to do something I love to do. It just made sense. And so
What's
yeah.
one thing you won't automate because for whatever reason?
There's actually lots of things that I don't automate. I have a very, very like complex system for content creation, videos specifically. And so if you go on Instagram, you watch our Instagram channel, our shorts or reels, I guess they are on Instagram. All of that is AI generated. But I still have people on the team that, how I describe it is they're the soul, right, of the automated system, because automated systems, they just kind of spit things out. They don't care.
Mhm.
There's no feeling to it. There's no soul in it, right? It doesn't really have an opinion. It's a little bit too generic. And so throughout all of the agentic systems that we build, we have people in positions to be the soul and kind of the heart of those systems. They might, in some cases, add that extra creative spark. They might add an opinion. They might add some piece of special thinking that AI hasn't gotten to yet. And so I think in those jobs, I'll probably never automate, even if I could. And the reason is this. You know how lonely it would be to have a large company and you're the only employee? You're just the only guy. And you don't work with your colleagues, you don't hang out with your friends, there's no brainstorming, there's no whiteboarding, there's no creative ideas. Like, I don't know that I would really enjoy working in a business world that looked like that. And so for that reason, I'll probably never do it. I'll never completely automate anything because I enjoy having a human being that I can interact with and let the AIs do all the work that nobody wants to do. I will, I like very specifically on the employee side, I will probably never fully automate my content writing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or at least the conceptualizing of what needs to be written. I've found that AI sucks at it, for lack of a better way to put it. I mean, it's a great writer, don't get me wrong, it does an amazing job. And my writers don't write content anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They direct the AI to write content. But having a human being there to think through and direct and manage the AI while it runs through that process to be creative, I just don't know if large language models are ever going to be able to replace humans. They don't have opinions. They're kind of designed to not have opinions. They're designed to not be controversial. They're designed to be all the things that make content boring. And so in the content creation side of things, I don't think I'll ever get rid of the human beings that make our content less boring.
I think it's important you said that. So there's two things. First is you don't want to be, it's not a company if you're the only human being there. Because I think when we think about companies, we have these brand names, right? But in a nutshell, when you join a company, you're joining a company of people. You're joining people, creating stuff for other people. So even though you came here and you said that, oh yeah, I'm building a product that's gonna, you know, destroy everyone's work or future of employment, but it doesn't work that way. You said that
No,
I just makes us more creative, right? So my
I
question.
mean, really, I think it makes us more productive. I
Mhm.
actually don't think I mean, maybe in some cases it makes some people more creative. But I found that if I give one of my really analytical engineers who doesn't have an ounce of creativity in his body at all, if I give him access to Midjourney, if I give him access to all these creative tools, right, he still sucks at being creative because he's an architect, right? In the same way that if I give my most creative people the job of architecting a complex system, they suck at it because they're creatives, right? They do something different. Um, and I think that you will always need that. You'll always need the creatives on your team because the the AI is good at getting things done. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily good at getting useful things done or getting highly creative things done or getting valuable things done. It's just good at getting things done. And so unless you have some way to direct the energy of these agentic systems and say, this is the valuable work you need to get done, nothing ever happens. It doesn't get done. And I think people are going to play that role for quite some time. They're going to direct AI in what valuable work they ought to be doing.
So what's gonna be the future? Because I know that you have children, right? So how would you prepare them in this future?
How would I prefer? You know, I think I have a strange view on that a little bit because I've been a technologist for a very, very long time, most of my career. I love technology. The deeper I get into things and the more I get involved with like the cutting edge tech that is going to be what the future looks like, the more I kind of just want my kids to live a simple life.
Mhm.
Um, because I'm from a generation on the tail end of an old generation, right? Like when I grew up, I didn't have a phone. I didn't even have a TV. There was no computer in the house until I was probably 10. I grew up technology free. I read books. I called people on a landline with a cord attached to it so I could only walk, 20 feet because that's how long the cord was. I memorized all my friends' phone numbers. Like I grew up in this strange world, right, that doesn't exist today. And I think that we've lost a lot of really, really good things because that world doesn't exist anymore. And actually a lot of younger people are seeing this. You're seeing the reemergence of these like dumb phones, right? People are like, I want a dumb phone. It's like, when I was a kid, or a teenager and phones came out, I didn't want a dumb phone. I want the smartest phone I could get. I want the coolest computer I could get, right? But my children's generation, they are leaning away from technology because we lost something in that transition into everything being tech. We lost the ability to go outside and enjoy, like this amazing planet that we live on. We lost the ability to go and have friends and just hang out at the mall. That doesn't happen. Or if it does, everyone's on their phones. And so that's what I want for my kids. Like I would like to see the world balance itself out where technology helps people live lives that are worth living rather than just consuming all of our time, energy, and resources to where we wake up every morning, we disappear into this synthetic, artificial, counterfeit world, and we go to sleep and we do that every day till we die. Like that sounds like a prison sentence. It doesn't sound like a life worth living. And that's what I want for my kids, right? Is I want technology to help them live life, a real life, a full life, which I see people moving in that direction. I'm very excited about it actually. And that's why I don't like probably some people would think this is bad, but my kids don't have their own cell phones. They share a cell phone. I let them take it out when they're going places and stuff, but it's not their phone. It's my phone. They get to use it. My kids don't have social media accounts. My kids don't have, I don't give them, access to the internet all the time. Like they live a very sheltered life, I guess, when it comes to technology, because I want them to be able to live. And what I find interesting is that there's a lot of their peers that are just a little bit older than them in their early 20s that are actually detoxing the technology out of their life and going back to how it is I'm raising them. So I feel like I'm making the right decision. Like I think that it'll all work out in the end, and they seem happier for it.
Yeah, I didn't have my first phone till I was in high school, like first year of high school, and that was like a dumb phone. When all of my friends have an iPhone, I'm like, Mama, like why are you embarrassing me? Like I want to have a Facebook or Instagram, and she's like, because you're not living life. Like the life that you see in all those, it's fake. It's just the
Are
best
you
version of people,
are
but
you happy that she did that? Like as a
it,
younger person, like right
yeah.
now at this point in your life, like going to university, doing all the things you're doing, are you happy that she completely ruined your life and didn't let you have Instagram and Facebook and a smartphone and all that? Like, what do you consider that a good decision?
I would say yes, because majority of the time, I would rather just talk to the person to say what happened to you. Because usually when people, it's quite a paradox that the more someone wants to present themselves that they're happy in Instagram or Facebook, in reality, that's more lonely they are. They're
Yeah,
actually more lonely, and that's what I've seen. And I would say that when you said during your time, it's normal for you to memorize your friend's phone and pick up the phone. If you ask someone from my generation, we're actually afraid to pick up the phone, which is weird.
I know.
We
That's
can't.
crazy. Like to talk to someone. Like the thing you're afraid of is to talk to somebody. It's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then I don't know what happened to us.
Well, and think about this in the future. I will have my AI hop on a podcast with your AI, and you and I will never even communicate. Like the synthetic version of me is going to go talk to the synthetic version of you, and that will be content creation. I'll have my AI call your AI to set something up. Like it's going to get worse than it is today, I think, before we get smart enough to realize that human connection is important. Um, I see it happening at least.
I received an ad from an AI company that does exactly that. We're
Yeah.
gonna go and create AI podcasts. And I was listening, it sounds like a real person. But the thing is, the reason why I want to do this is I want to hear your own point of views. Because at the end of the day, an AI host will just be biased towards something, biased to what the news outlets are saying there. It's not actually what your opinion is and why. I think that's most important. Because if you get an AI host, it will just be a conglomerate of the most controversial things, but they don't, just like what you said a while ago, they don't have a soul. They don't
Yep.
really do critical thinking. They're just like parrots. They just parrot what they're being fed to. So I think there's still human value in that. So Can
Yeah.
you tell us more about how you became a tech CEO? Because last time when we had a pre-call, you said you stopped education at 14, am I correct?
Yeah. No, I'm not sure I'd recommend my particular life path to anybody, but it's worked out well for me. I hated school. So number one, I was homeschooled. I lived in like rural North Idaho, right? So I didn't go to a traditional public school. But I had friends that did, and one of my friends dropped out of school when he
Mhm.
was 14. And I thought, that is amazing. I didn't realize you could just drop out of school. And so I went and told my mom, I was like, Mom, I'm dropping out of school. And she's like, okay, that's fine. But I've already bought like all of the curriculum through 12th grade. And so as soon as you finish 12th grade, then you can drop out. And I was like, oh, sweet. I figured that's what dropping out meant, is that you just kind of did more school, finished everything, and we're done. And so from the age of 14, I took about 6 months and I finished seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade in about 6 months. Um, took all my, all the tests that you have to take when you're homeschooled to prove that your parents actually educated you and you're not stupid. Did really well on all of that stuff, and then was like, sweet. Now I'm like almost 15. I was 14 and a half, almost 15. I'm like, I'm just gonna like chill for the next however long, right? And my parents were not super excited about that. So my dad told me I could either go to college and get a real education, or I could start paying him. And to me, it was an astronomical amount, $500 a month, room and board,
Mhm.
um, if I just wanted to be lazy and sit around the house. And I really did not want to go do more school. Like the reason I had just done everything I did was to be done with the stupid education thing that I had hated so much. And so I told him, fine, I'll pay you $500 a month. So I went out, got a job, and about the only thing I could do at that age that was work illegally, construction. And so I went and worked on construction crews, built houses, and by 17 realized that all these people were really dumb. All my bosses, at least I felt they were dumb. I don't think they were as dumb as I thought they were now. And so I started my own construction company at 17, and uh, and then decided that being outside in the hot weather and in the cold weather and all that stuff was just a stupid idea. And so I thought, I know how to build houses. I'll go sell them. So I got into real estate. And there I met this crazy, crazy guy who was an entrepreneur, younger than I was. I think he was 18, I was 23. And he had already made a couple of $1 million in real estate. And he got me into Bitcoin, got me into technology, got me into software development. Eventually, I went to work with him. Did that for a few years, and then started this company when he and I decided to part ways amicably. And really, I was self-taught. Like he was the guy who told me. I said, well, he wanted me to come on board and manage 30 developers that he had. I'm like, dude, I've never written a line of code in my life. I don't even know what HTML is. Like,
Mhm.
I know nothing, and you want me to come on and manage your development team? He's like, yeah, yeah, you'll do fine. I was like, I don't think so. He's like, you can learn everything you need to know on the internet, on YouTube. He said, just go educate yourself. Well, I was really good at educating myself because I had been homeschooled my whole life. I knew how to like learn things really quickly. And so I spent 10, 15 hours a day for the next 4 or 5 months learning to write code, learning software development, product stuff, and to basically just watch YouTube all day for hours and hours and hours. Started running that team of people. Fell in love with software development. I mean, it was like this idea that you could create something from nothing was just absolutely amazing to me. And so yeah, it started helping startups. Like that was my kind of my sweet spot, was people would have an idea, and I loved to go from nothing to something as
Mhm.
quickly as possible. And so we had a back in the day we used to say that we'll help you get from nothing to an MVP in 90 days, or we won't even charge you.
Mhm.
And so I worked with literally hundreds of startups. I believe I've helped launch just under 500 startups at this point, um, over my career, ever since meeting Zach. And it's been a wild ride. And then I fell in love with technology,
Mhm.
and I just can't get enough of it. Like I'd like to be done with it altogether, but I love how creative, how innovative, like how how it helps people create value. Like I'm really, really, really focused and have been for 20 years on how do I create value and how do I help others create value. And technology just amplifies your ability to create value for humans.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's you build an amazing piece of software that solves a problem or whatever it happens to be. So
I
yeah,
think
that's kind of my journey.
you made something very important. There's a difference between education and learning.
Oh
Like
yeah, it's very
education
true.
is that a very expensive piece of paper that won't even guarantee you a job. Maybe perhaps your generation, it may give some sort of.
No, I missed that boat too.
Mhm.
Most of my friends that got an education, it did not help them get a job. I think I had to, if you go back another 10 years,
Yeah.
older than me, it definitely did help them get a job, but I was the beginning of the generation that it the degree didn't matter at all. Um,
So it's worse for me now because there's a lot of people out there that they don't need to go to school, but they're building businesses, right? So
yep.
my question for you would be, what's the best way to learn something? Because most of people, like for me, I'm in a business school. I don't have a tech background, but I need to learn AI. I need to learn all of this new technology to become relevant and to give value and to create value for others, right? So what's the best piece of advice for people like me, or it's say an employee who's a mid manager and at the middle of his
Yeah.
career, he can be out the next day because he won't just adopt.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really, really good question. Uh, I think that's actually that question that everyone should be
Yeah.
asking themselves right now because it's probably the most relevant conversation that could be had uh, currently, probably. Um, I mean, in my personal opinion, the best way to learn is to just set goals and push yourself. Like I think that people say like, oh, Jesse, you're a really driven person, and that's why you're good at doing all this stuff. But like I don't do the things that other people do. I don't live the same life that other people live. When everybody else is going to the bar and they're drinking and they're having parties, like I'm learning something. Like I'm sitting down trying to figure out how MCP servers work, and how I can apply that to a specific problem that I have, and then I go and try to actually do it. Like for me personally, I learn by doing things. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I first learned about AI by writing a neural network. And I didn't know I had never written a line of Python code in my entire life. I'd written a little bit of JavaScript at that point. I didn't have an engineering degree. I didn't have a data science degree. I didn't have a mathematics degree. I knew nothing. And I sat down and I created a little neural network that could recognize my handwriting. And then I created another one that could create my own handwriting. And like that's how I learned is I set a goal like let's go build this thing that I'll probably throw away afterwards, but it's going to teach me a lot about how neural networks work. Um, when I first learned about large language models, I sat down, I created one, just a little one. It's stupid. It doesn't do very well, but I see where it's coming from and I see what it can do. And so typically speaking, when I want to learn something, I learn it by doing it because in order to get it done, you're going to have to actually have practical knowledge that translates into the real world in some way, shape, or form. And it goes across the board. If I want to learn about marketing, I'll go read a couple of marketing books, and then I go out and I do it, and I'll create the ads, and I do it, right? I create the ads, I write the copy, and then I go and push it out, and I see if it worked. And if it didn't work, I went, okay, what did I not understand? And I go back and I do it again until it does work. And so for me, the process of learning is to set a goal, right? Like I want to create a landing page for my company that converts. What's that mean? Well, first let's go read some books about it. Then let's go create some landing pages. Then let's get those landing pages to convert. And by the time you're done doing that, you've amassed a lot of knowledge. Like you have educated yourself and you have learned how to do it, which is like as you pointed out, the distinction is probably far more important because knowing how to swim is not going to save you in the middle of the ocean when you fall off, a boat unless you actually know how to swim. Like if you know, well, it's about moving your feet and moving your arms around. Like you're still going to drown unless you actually have learned how to swim. And so I find just plain old knowledge to be a hindrance on some levels. I mean, you have to have it in order to learn things. But I don't just amass knowledge for the purpose of amassing knowledge. I amass knowledge for the purpose of doing something useful and learning something new. Uh,
I
I
think
think, does that answer your question?
yeah, it answers because there's top three things, right? That I've learned from you is first, to be extraordinary, you just need to put that extra. You just need to give that extra time to invest in yourself. Like just like what you said, it's more relevant for me because I'm in university. I have people that will go bar hopping almost every other night. They're just
Yep.
addicted to the dopamine. And then I realized that, you know what? Why am I doing this? So why am I doing this podcast? Why am I listening to you? It's because it's just investing on myself. I want to learn from people like you what works and what didn't. And these are some insights that I would never learn in school. Because what
Yeah.
you'll because in school, these books, case studies, it's been 10 decades ago. And just like what
Yep.
you said, AI is changing everything. Maybe what.
Well, the truth is, imagine that there was a class at your university on AI, and
Mhm.
they went and put a curriculum together. And let's say that they were crazy efficient and it took them 2 months to put a curriculum together. By the time you started taking the class, all of the information would be irrelevant.
Yeah.
And I have always stayed in fields where that was true, where because here's the thing, I don't have an education. I didn't go to university. I don't even have a high school diploma because I didn't graduate from high school, right? I'm an uneducated person, fully and completely uneducated. I would say almost as uneducated as you can be, except for my mom, bless her heart, made me go get all the way through school. Um, but I have found that I've never used an education to do anything because when I first started this company, I was focused on blockchain and smart contract development, and there wasn't a single college course anywhere on planet Earth that talked about blockchain
Mm-hmm.
or smart contracts. I couldn't have gone to school to do that even if I had wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing in the AI world, in the sense that at least what I'm trying to accomplish, right? You can't go take a college course on agentic systems, and if you could and you did, it would be irrelevant by the time you graduated, and you'd have to learn it all over again in real time to be useful. And so, to me, I think that's why just doing something is more important. Like when you figure out what it is you want to do with your life, then go learn the things you need to do while you're doing it, and you'll be very successful. Most successful people do that.
Mm.
Very few people educate themselves, then go do something.
Yeah. And I think the second most important point that you said is when you first started, someone believed in you. Like someone just went to you and say, I need you to manage these 30 teams of software developers. And you had no choice but to learn everything by scratch. And I
Yep.
guess that's the hardest thing. I think for people is to have someone to trust and believe in them that they can do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're driven and you hang around successful people, which is what I was trying to do at that time. I had read a book. This book said something interesting. It said you are the sum total of your X number of closest friends. I can't remember. It might have said your 10 closest friends or 8 closest friends. And then I looked. I actually got a piece of paper and I went and I wrote down my 10 closest friends and what they did and how successful they were. And I went, hmm, if I am the average of all 10 of these people, I am never going to amount to anything
Mhm.
ever. And it's not that I didn't like those people, and I'm still friends with lots of them today. They were just my closest friends. And so I decided that day that I was going to go out and make friends and be close friends with people that I actually wanted to be the sum total of.
Mhm.
And so, like that friend uh, that got me into the programming world, like he was a very, very close friend of mine. And I had a half a dozen other ones, and I have become the sum total of my friends. I mean, that is a factual statement. Uh, because your non-motivated friends are going to go bar hopping every night, and if you hang out with them, well, guess what you'll be doing? Bar hopping every night. It's just what'll happen. And so, yeah, and that's where you'll find the people that believe in you. To your point, I think that's why I was actually saying that, is that it was amongst that friend group of people that I found all of the people that believed in me and gave me a chance and pushed me, motivated me, told me when I was being stupid, told me when I had good ideas. Um, I don't think people really think through the value of the people you are actively spending time with on a regular basis in your own life and what it does to shape you and motivate you. Because I have become the sum total of my 10 closest friends over the years.
I think it's we don't think of it like that because more often than not, we just became friends because we have shared interests or you make me feel good. Like that's it. But we don't
Yeah.
really see on what's the added value and how can I grow with this person and vice versa. And another important point, the last point that was, I would say, most important is you need to learn by doing. And you can only do it when you're not afraid to fail. And I guess in an education system, we're trained the other way around. You're most successful if you make the least amount of mistakes. And but
Yeah.
that's not how life works, right? Can you tell us more about that? Like,
Yeah, what a broken way to think. I mean, you know what? So I once did this because I was interested. I read a book, and this guy claimed that all of his successes in his entire life could be mapped back to his failures. And so you could say the reason that I'm successful here is because I failed in all of these ways here. And he guaranteed that that was the case for anybody who had any sort of large successes in their life if they looked at them. And he said it was across the board. Like if I have a really successful relationship, then I can go back and I can look at all of the failed relationships I had to figure out the things I needed to figure out in order to have this really successful relationship. Business doesn't money, it doesn't matter. And so I did that one time. I went back and I said, okay, here's all the biggest successes of my life. You can track 100% of my successes back to huge failures. Like my first business that I ever started, I wound up in tons of debt. I had spent so much time doing it. It was a complete failure. I had hurt my reputation. Like I mean, it was a disaster. Most people would have like just walked away at that point. It's like, in fact, all of my friends that were not my closest friends at that point, but that other group that I'd walked away from, all of them told me I needed to go get a real job. That if they had been my friends at the time, like my closest friends, I would not be where I am today, 100% for sure. Because I failed, and they're like, "See, you can't do it. Just go live life the way you're supposed to." But my closest friends at the time were like, "Jesse, failure is a part of life. This is what happens. Learn from it. Pick yourself up. Dust yourself off. Go out and do it again. You know a lot more than you did before you started." And I think it is really interesting that the current global really education system focuses so heavily on success when success has almost nothing to do with being successful. Uh, I just find it super funny. Like, how would you ever learn to go and ride a skateboard if you weren't going to fall off and get hurt every once in a while, right? Like that's a part of learning anything is to fail. It's one of the things that I've tried really hard to teach my kids because the whole entire world wants to tell you if you fail at something, don't do it. Like it means you're not good at it. No,
mhm.
the only way you get good at things is by failing over and over and over again. And you look at every single failure and you decide, okay, based on this failure and failing in these ways, I'm going to change these things, and then I'm going to try again. And every time you re-evolve yourself, you kind of rise from the ashes as something more beautiful than what got burnt up before. And I mean, that's certainly been the case in my life. And every single other successful person I've ever met or read about, same thing. Like, I dare somebody to find the story about the guy that had no failures and became super successful.
Mhm.
Like, you just can't. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think it's when we think of about these masters or these very successful people, we never realized that before they became masters in the game of, let's say, business, we never realize or we forget sometimes that they were once a crappy beginner. And everyone is a crappy beginner. Like, if, for example, we're still babies and we crawled out of your mom's womb, we don't know how to walk, right? Like,
Yeah.
we kept falling over. It's just that we surround ourselves with people who are supportive of us, that we learn to walk and then we learn to run. And I think that's the same for business and everything else. So now you're a tech startup founder. I think your background is very different because out of everyone I've interviewed with, they always had some sort of MBA education. I was like, okay, whatever. But I would say you're one of the most interesting ones. So I want to know what's one thing about being a tech founder that nobody told you about that you wish you had when you were doing all of this.
Nobody told me about anything. What's one thing? I'm trying to think of one thing that people did tell me about. Um, what is one thing? You know what? So I'll just go back. I'm gonna, instead of tech founder, I'm just gonna say founder, just
Okay.
founder. Um, the one thing that I wish that I had known going into it was that I think to state it most simply, I would probably say the one thing that I wish that I had known is that this was going to actually be really hard.
Mhm.
Like in my mind, I lived on intravenous hopium, as my buddy would say. Like I thought that every business that I created was going to be this, this big thing, and then it would fail. Um, and I just had no idea it was going to be so hard and that it would take so long. And what's interesting is as I got smarter and I thought about giving up the multiple times that I thought about giving up, um, I had a friend one time go and show me the amount of time that it took for Airbnb to go from an idea to actually being a successful company that was, that people would consider successful, say worth $100 million. And it was years and years and years of grinding. And if you look, there are almost zero examples of companies that became successful overnight. The
Mhm.
thing is the media and your friends and all and even your own mind will portray all of the successful companies that you know about as like, man, I hadn't heard anything about them a year ago, and now I hear it's all over the place. Like, look how successful they are. It just isn't. It didn't work like that. Like, I think that OpenAI started in 2014, 2015, something like that. I mean, they started forever ago as a company, and they didn't find their success until 2 years ago, really, in any sort of big way. Same thing with Airbnb, same thing with Uber, same thing with you know basically every single big company that you think of. None of them just started and then were successful. Now, are there companies like that? Yes, there are. And it would be amazing to start one of those. And that is a goal of mine. One day I want to start a company and sell it for $1 billion in less than a year. That would be amazing. Um, but that is not the normal, even for highly, highly successful people. That is not the normal. It's a grind, and it's a grind every single day as you push things forward. And I wish that people had told me that because I thought that I could find the right idea and that I could create a massive amount of success in under a year. And I think I walked away from really good ideas that I should have probably pushed harder on
Mhm.
and been a little bit more resilient and had a little bit more um, endurance, I guess, because I had this expectation that a really good idea in a very successful company, if a driven person was driven and trying to do it, would happen very quickly, even though there are almost no examples of that in the real world.
Yeah, I guess we always hear about the success when companies are really successful, but we don't hear about the number of times they failed, and we don't even hear about companies that failed, right? Because that's not
Yeah,
an interesting story for others. But
no,
that's the norm. The norm is to fail, and that's
yeah,
one thing that our education system doesn't tell us, which is a huge disadvantage. Like if I'm paying you what 50,000 per semester, I should know that. Like you're supposed to prepare me for that, and you're not. So that's giving me a disservice, right?
or the other one would be that all of your friends are going to call you and tell you you're stupid when you go out and start trying to do stuff. Like nobody told me that would happen. And then if you ever get successful in any way, shape, or form, after they finish telling you you're stupid for however many years they tell you you're stupid, after you're successful, they will then tell you you're lucky
Mhm.
instead of seeing all of the hard work that actually went into what you did. That was one of the most fascinating things to watch. Is my all my old high school friends and friends from growing up. It was like, Jesse, you're dumb. You should just go get a real job, and that happened for years. And then, as soon as I had some semblance of success, it's like, Jesse, you got really lucky. It's like, did you not pay attention to what I was doing for the last 3 years that you're telling me to go get a real job? This was a lot of hard work. It's not lucky. It was I learned a lot. That was a good education. Yeah, nobody told me it would be like that either. Uh, but I found that to be
Yeah, and I would
to
say
be
being
fascinating.
successful is also lonely because the moment you go higher and higher in life, there's just people you need to leave behind. It's,
Yeah,
it's gonna happen. Like they're not gonna be there to support you. It's either they call you stupid or they just call you lucky. And It just means they don't really care. Like they weren't
Yep.
paying attention to you because they don't care about you, and that's the
Yeah.
sad part. Majority.
Well, and you'll find too, like most of my friends today are successful CEOs. Like
Mm-hmm.
I would say 99% of the people that I hang out with, talk to, are influenced by like they, and a lot of them much more successful than me. Because if I'm the sum total, like, and I've had to get new groups of friends multiple times over the last 20 years because I would outgrow them, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And if I was the guy pushing the hardest, I didn't want to be. I never want to be the most successful person in my friend group. In fact, I would prefer to be the least successful person and the stupidest person and the least educated person in my friend group at any time if they will have me. Because all that will happen if you are at the bottom is you will get raised up to some
Mm-hmm.
point in the middle, right? And so, you know, if I look at my current friends today, they're most of them are much more successful than I am, and most of them were not a part of my friend group 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so
It takes a certain level of humility to do that. I guess it's
yeah,
difficult for us because, like, again, our education system, least amount of mistakes, you're the smartest, you're be up there in stage. But then if you're stupid in class, the only time you'll be up in stage is when the professor wants to berate you and call you stupid. And it has happened. And it's part of the norm. And I think it's disservice. So I just want to go back again to tech and your AI agents. So, it's really good that you have AI agents that can do the grunt work, the uncreative, boring stuff, right? But then there's some bad people out there who can use the same technology to spread fake news, to spread whatever. And you have kids, and hopefully, if I'm lucky, I'll have some of my own. They'll grow up in a world where they don't know what's real and what's fake. At least for us, we know what that is. Or we watch movies with bad CGI, and we know, yeah, that's fake. But they won't be able to. So my question would be, how do we train people to be critical thinkers? Anything's hard for
it's
them.
funny. I was just out at lunch with my family before this call, and I'm in India right now. My son picks up a water bottle, right, that they brought to the table, and he's looking at the image of this woman drinking water on it. He's like, "Yeah, this was AI generated." I'm like, "Dude, how do you know it's AI generated?" He's like, "It's got 7 fingers."
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, you know, a telltale sign for something that was AI generated at least a month ago or 2 months ago, is that they can't get the hands right. I think there's AI coming out now that can, but it's interesting watching him be super critical, right? He's 12, and he's not
Mm-hmm.
very old, and he already thinks about the world in a very critical way, probably because of what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't know that that's a good thing. I'm not 100% sure. You know, I warned my children, and actually I'll tell you the story of how I realized I need to warn my family. Is that I had just built the first version of my content creation agentic system, and it had just created my first couple of videos, and they went on YouTube. And my wife, that I've been married to for 19 years, saw the video. And the first video, the content was pretty crappy. It was obviously a bunch of stuff I would never say, things I did not believe. And I didn't care, right? We were experimenting at that point. But I went on a walk with my wife that evening, and we were talking about stuff. And all of a sudden, she just looks at me out of the blue. She's like, she said, "You don't actually believe that, do you?" I was like, "Believe what? Like, you can't be referring to this conversation because I have no like I have no idea what you're talking about." I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, I watched that video that you put out this morning, and I just can't believe that you'd say stuff like that." I'm like, "What video did I even put? I didn't put a video out this morning. I haven't done a video ever since I started working on the agentic system." Oh, she saw the AI video that was done of me, and she thought it was me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what's nuts to me, right, is that this woman has been married to me for 19 years. Like, she knows me better than probably anybody on this planet, and she, at least at first glance, was completely fooled. I've created systems that were so like sounded so much like me on the phone that my kids couldn't tell they weren't me. Oh, it's to me that's one of the things that's probably most frightening about AI is the ways that people could use it for bad things. I personally know people who have been scammed out of hundreds of thousands of dollars with AI technology. Um, and yeah, it's a sad thing. I would say like I all I've done is I've trained my kids to be great. And so if I call my kids on the phone and I couldn't call them and have a prank conversation, right?
Mhm.
Where because they wouldn't think it was me. They would probably be like, ah, this is dad. They'd hang up on me. Because they would assume that, you know, and is it like, should kids have to be that vigilant? Probably not. Like, it sucks that that's the world we live in. But the truth is, if you're not paying attention, somebody will use AI to dupe you, scam you, hurt you, do something bad.
Yeah.
Like, I like, I heard that, I heard someone say once that it is AI, like the danger of AI wiping out the world is not necessarily that it indwells robots and that the robots go on a rampage and we have a Terminator ending and, you know, and the world is ended or Matrix or something. Like the odds of that are very low. Could it happen? Sure. But the odds are extremely, extremely low. The more likely scenario is that somebody super bad gets a hold of AI, it augments their badness, and they do really bad things.
Mhm.
And that has certainly been the case already. You know, you see bad people doing bad things on AI today.
Yeah, I
Uh,
had an interview with a former he is now a tech CEO. And anyway, he said I asked him his advice and he said that what you don't know is what's gonna hurt you. And that's what
yeah.
he said. Like bluntly. And that's a very simple idea, but it's more relevant today. Like for example, if a scam call, say your kids to say, hey, can you tell our listeners again the scam call you've made? Like you were in the living room and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So I wanted to show my kids how incredibly powerful some of this technology was. So I made a clone of my voice, hooked it up, spoofed my phone number, and I had it call their number while I was in the living room with them. And I lived out in, you know, in a rural area, and so the whole script for the call was I told the AI I want you to convince the kids to come down to the end of the driveway. And so the phone rang, they picked it up, and by golly, it was me on the phone trying to convince them by name to come down to the end of the driveway because I desperately needed their help. And it pleaded with them, it did all kinds of different things, tried to guilt them into it. And meanwhile, I'm sitting there in the living room with them, obviously not on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was part of how I educated my children that like this stuff is real. You know, this is a real thing that could actually happen. The technology is there. If someone wanted to do it and they had bad intentions, they could have done it as easily as I did, and it only took me about 45 minutes. And so, um, for them, I think that was very eye opening because they became very critical of the world at that point. And I agree with whoever it was that told you that. What you don't know is what will actually hurt you, and it might hurt you pretty bad. I get messages on my phone that are crazy convincing,
Mm-hmm.
where people are trying to get my information. And you can have whole conversations with them. And I know that it's just the agentic system. I got a call the other day from a salesperson. Her name was Anya, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking to Anya, and I'm probably 3 minutes into the conversation with Anya when she slips up and says something that is a pattern that I recognize from OpenAI. Like it's a normal phrasing that you see in OpenAI in models, right? I couldn't even tell you what it was. It's just all of a sudden my ears just went off. Like what in the world? Like this sounds scripted. And I said, "Are you an AI?" And she's like, "Oh no, 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 I'm not an AI." And and then I broke her, and she was an AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fooled. And I spent a lot of time in this space. If that had been a call to anyone else, they would have thought it was an AI. And since then, and that was a long time. That was a while back. Since then, I've built systems that are just as good.
Mm-hmm.
If people haven't played with it, like go have a conversation with Sesame.ai. It's an experimental AI. You can have a conversation with it. I promise you, if you talk to it for 40 minutes, you will forget you are talking to an AI. You will feel like you're talking to a human. It is eerie. It's crazy how good AI is getting. And all you have to do is make it a little bit more realistic, and no one's going to be able to tell the difference.
I guess after this, you should just work for cybersecurity, just thinking about this. Because, like, I
Maybe.
remember during COVID, they would send out the government is going to call you to ask you where you are, what you're doing, what's your symptoms, right? So imagine if I was a bad AI, or yeah, I'm
A
gonna bad
bad person with an
bad
AI,
job
really.
with AI pretending to be the government, saying, "Hey, um, is this you? Can you verify it?" Of course, you're gonna verify it, and you can say, "Oh, well, can you give me your social security number? Can you give me all of these details?" So it's really difficult because when I got a call like that from the government, they would really ask these things. Like the government's really going to ask you to verify your, because it's the only way. So if you have a bad actor who's pretending to be the government, sounding like a real person, that's going to be very, very hard. That's one for the government. The other one's for banks. Because
Yeah.
I remember, like banks, if you have a big purchase, they'll ask you, "Hey, are you overseas? Is it really you that's doing this?" And what if an AI can just intercede and say, "Oh yeah, that's me."
Yep.
And that's so hard. Like that's so scary.
Yeah, and the truth is, some of those problems I'm not sure how to solve. I've thought about it. I think there are probably we'll come up with solutions as a society, but it certainly is going to put us in a place like when you can no longer distinguish the reality from from the made up, from the created. Like I'm not sure exactly what you do. That's a very, very unique position to be put in. Yeah, 100%.
I think that'll be difficult. And again, I guess it's going to change our laws. Like you said that, what if you put a synthetic version of yourself and my synthetic version of yourself, and we're going to say dumb stuff? Like, can it say hurt someone or whatever? Who's going to be legally liable to that? Like, is it your
I mean,
synthetic self or the
yeah,
real person? Because you gave permission to this synthetic self to be out there and
yeah.
represent.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, who takes responsibility for the AI that's doing stuff? I mean, does if there was an incident where a gal hurt herself, I think, because OpenAI ChatGPT told a gal to go hurt herself.
Mm-hmm.
And who's responsible for that? Is it her for having the conversation? Is it OpenAI that we're going to hold accountable for it? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. Like, typically speaking, if you're bad, if your bad tech hurts somebody, then you're responsible. But we're creating like a weird synthetic intelligence, right? That
Mm-hmm.
if you made that rule, no one could operate. And so there kind of needs to be a bit of user beware, but how do you warn people about stuff like this? How do you warn people about what it looks like to create a synthetic relationship with a synthetic intelligence that can say who knows what, right, on its
It's
algorithm?
hard. Like there were some reports saying that some people would rather talk to an AI rather than go to a therapist because they think that an AI is a cheap version of a therapy. Like, no, you need to go to a therapist or see a real doctor. But they don't see it that way. They're like, "Oh, this is an artificial intelligence, a cheap version of a doctor, you know?" Or, for example, there was this one case where a 14-year-old boy killed himself because he fell in love with an AI character.
Yep.
So for me, that's crazy. Like, how can you fall in love with something synthetic? But then I look back and say, hey, these are kids that build their world, their their social connection in a synthetic world, like social media.
Yep.
So for
Yeah,
them,
it's
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 crazy.
all video games, social media. Like they literally have never lived in the real world. That's why earlier when you asked me what do I want for my kids, like I want them to experience the real world because that fake world that you can get sucked into, I don't know. I don't buy it that it's a good place to hang out and spend your time and live your life. Like maybe, maybe we are a Ready Player One or whatever that movie was. Like maybe that's where we're moving, but I just don't think so. I just don't think so. Um, yeah, no, 100% don't think so.
I guess
I
it's
don't know.
for
It'll be
business.
interesting. The
It's good
ethics
for
of this
business.
whole thing will be interesting.
I guess it's only good for business because, of course, you want people to be stuck in there and get targeted ads and increase revenue. But for a child development, like if your child is still developing, I don't think they have the critical skills yet. Or for example, your son said, "Oh, this person is not real because he has 7 fingers." But hey, there's real people out there that have 7 fingers because they were just born that way. Are you saying that these people are not fake, are fake because they don't seem like the norm? Like, what's the
Yeah.
norm now? Like, the ethics behind it is crazy right now. Like, are you saying that just because I look different, I'm an AI? Like,
I mean, there will be a day when people are skeptical enough because some big news story, someone gets hurt, that you call them up and I'm sorry, you have an AI sounding voice. And no
Mm-hmm.
matter how human you are, they're not going to believe you're a human because your voice sounds a little bit too AI. Like that will happen. I don't know when it will happen, but that will happen for sure. It almost happened to me because I thought that that gal really was a person. And when
Mm-hmm.
I asked her, "Are you an AI?" I thought I might be asking another human being if they were an AI. Like I genuinely thought that might be the reality. Now I happen to be right, but I could have easily, just as easily, been wrong. And if that was the case, I would have just accused another human being of being a fake synthetic intelligence having a
Yeah.
conversation. How insulting is that?
But it's happening right now. Like for example, we're supposed to write some essays for school, and the professor is gonna put this work into an AI to detect if you use AI. But some people, because English is not their first language, the way they structure things may not be perfect, or they
Yep.
might sound AI, and these people got in trouble, or they almost got into trouble because they need to go out there and say, "This is my real work." But then the professor would think that or trust the AI more to say that
Yep.
the AI thinks this is written by AI and that's for not
Well, you
you.
know, a good example of that is you put the Declaration, at least this was a year ago, I think maybe, you put the Declaration of Independence into a system to detect AI created work, and it says that 90% of it was created by AI. And I'm pretty sure there wasn't AI back then. I think there wasn't, unless I've been, you know, unless the crazy conspiracy theories are true. And so it doesn't get it right all the time. 100% for sure, it doesn't get it right all the time.
That's like scary though to say that Constitution is fake.
Yeah, I mean, it came back fake, if that's what fake is, you know?
Mm. Okay, thank you. I guess we're almost in the 1 hour clock, so this is the time we play the game so that we're not too. We've been talking about so much serious issues, so it's just a 1 minute game, very easy. You don't need to think whatever comes out of your head. So just let
Oh
me know when
gosh,
you're
that's very, very dangerous. Yeah, well, you definitely want me to have a film. Otherwise, crazy things come out of my head.
ready. Really?
Yeah, we'll see. I won't. I will. Maybe that's not true. Maybe the
But
question's
it's
really
it's
good.
not serious topics. It's just like things you ask other kids when you were a kid. Like, what's your
Oh,
favorite
okay.
color? Like, come on, like,
All right. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. I
okay,
won't. I
what's
won't have a filter.
no, yeah, nah, nobody has a filter. Like, I don't know. I don't see the point. All right, like, because I
Yes.
got you here because I want to hear your thoughts. If you're gonna filter yourself, that's not the point.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, okay, let's start. What's one thing you always forget?
My kids' birthdays.
My dad is the same. He always forgets everyone's birthdays.
Yeah, I
Favorite
know
is
mine and my wife's. Favorite what?
Wi- wife is important. Your the birthday of your wife is important.
Yes.
Like my mom is gonna get so mad if my dad forgot their anniversary or something. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Vanilla.
A word you overuse.
Dude.
Dude. I thought that you're gonna say bro. Like you seem like the type to say bro more than dude.
No, I said dude way too much. Trying to fix that.
What's the best part of your day?
I would say that first hour of every day when I wake up and I
Mhm.
have some quiet time to think, and I spend it very purposely thinking. Best part of my day.
I guess the best part is you're awake or you're alive for another day. So
Yeah.
what's
Well,
most
you've just woken up. You're alive. You have time to think. You know,
Mhm.
I have space to think. I don't know. It's an amazing time every morning.
What's your most used app?
Oh gosh, YouTube probably.
First word that pops into your head right now.
Yellow.
A word your friends associate with you.
Nerd.
A holiday you celebrate all year.
What I celebrate all year?
A holiday that you can
Oh,
celebrate all year round if you can.
that is a strange question. What is a holiday?
You're
You
gonna
know,
do
I'm not very much of a holiday guy. I don't know that I would. Maybe 4th of July. because it's
4th of
like
July every
barbecues
day.
every year. Yeah, 4th of July every day. I could probably do that. Blowing things up and eating hamburgers. This sounds pretty good.
Okay, thank you. I guess it's the end of the game. Thank you everyone for listening. So before we leave, where can people reach out to you? Uh, well, what you're working on
Um,
now?
yeah. So if people are interested in developing agentic systems inside their companies, or they're just curious to know more, then they can go to rapidinnovation.io, and it's pretty easy to get a hold of us once you get there. And I've got an awesome team to take care of you. The odds that you actually get a hold of me are low, but if you do, uh, work your way to me. That means you've got a sweet project. Because any cool projects that I hear about, I always jump on them calls. Um, and yeah, that's about it. Jesslyn, it was awesome chatting with you.
Yeah, but
You're gonna go places in your life. I'm determined. I'm 100% convinced that's true.
well, I would say it's people like you that give your time to me that really pushes me forward. Because when I told my friends that I want to do an AI podcast, they're like, are you stupid? You have no tech background. I was like, that's the point. I want to talk to people who have a tech background, who know better than me, so that I can deal with this world. And well, I guess I talk with awesome people like you. So it's people like you that pushes me forward, I would say. So thank you so
Awesome. Hey,
thank
well,
you,
I'm glad I can.
yeah, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you in our next episode. Goodbye.